The red pill of dating and relationships, especially in regards to women, is a complete lie. And you might be thinking to yourself, oh, this guy with his beard and his hair and the fact that he's not wearing a shirt, clearly he's just some hippie. He's just going to be like, oh, well, all women are queens. How dare you? Actually, the blue pill is correct. I'm not saying that, okay? There's a lot to be said about hypergamy, how women will always go for the highest value guy. I'm not arguing against that. What I am arguing against is this idea that you learning about the truth about female nature is going to unplug you from the matrix, because it's not. Because when you unplug yourself from that matrix, you're still actually in the matrix. And here's what I mean. You see, so much of what determines human behavior, arguably the most important part according to modern psychology, I'm going to reference a book that I love here called Willpower Doesn't Work. You can go look for it yourself in there if you're curious about where I got this from. But we're heavily influenced by our environment, our psychology, both men and women. And as part of that environment, it's our financial circumstances. Whether we like it or not, we live in a capitalist society. I'm not going to say whether that's good or bad here or not. Money makes the world go round. It just does. And a lot of times when people observe female behavior or they observe like what's happening in the dating marketplace, the rise of inceldom, they automatically associate it with things like, oh, the invention of the birth control pill, the rise of social media, the rise of dating apps. Yes, those things are definitely relevant. But there's one other thing that is so obviously relevant that probably contributes to the fact that women feel more entitled than ever and men are struggling more than ever when it comes to their dating lives. That fact is the financial situation of the average person in the US. The average guy, especially in their 20s, is not making nearly as much money as the average guy was making, let's say 40 years ago. 40 years ago, it was normal to have a house. It was normal to have a lot of disposable income. It was normal to not really have an exorbitant amount of debt.
The suburbs were available, and then Levittown became available to all ex-servicemen, and the rent was $60 a month, and it was there. And it was a little house, and it belonged to you, and you weren't living with your parents any longer. So it was exciting and scary living.
That shit does not exist anymore. It just doesn't. Even guys who are supposedly high value and making six figures, a lot of them are still not even able to really get by, and they're still living paycheck to paycheck because they have to live in a super expensive place where the rent is like $3,000, $4,000 a month, and they need to also have a car and car insurance and all this other BS. And then before you know it, they're out of money. And with so many guys, even guys who are on paper doing well, always in this scarcity mindset, that is going to carry over into their relationships, into their conversations with the opposite sex. And I promise right now, I'm not just going on a rant of complaining about the plight of men. I'm actually going to offer a very practical solution, which is a very rare thing in the manosphere. Most of the manosphere is just a bunch of bitching and complaining without actually providing solutions. So I will provide a solution by the end of this video. So we covered the flaw with men nowadays and how a lot of their dating struggles happens to be because of the financial situation that they're in. And I want to cover women now too, okay? So women are in the same boat. For them, it's tough for them to succeed financially the same way men are. So a lot of them, they end up resorting to things like sugar daddying or doing OnlyFans or always trying to find a guy that's like making six figures. Why do you think that is? It's because it's hard to make it as a girl or just anybody nowadays when you're in loads of debt and your dollar isn't as strong as it used to be. And compared to 40, 50 years ago, where people's incomes were actually able to sustain a decent amount of their lifestyle, now a lot of women feel like they have to resort to trying to find a high value guy in order to actually be able to like live a normal life. And a big problem that I have with the red pill and the manosphere is that they don't look at it from a macro perspective. They just see, oh, these women are acting like these thoughts, these gold diggers, and they're just terrible because of female nature, bro. It's always been this way. No, it hasn't always been this way, okay? Look, we can argue all day about female nature and whatnot, but we all agree, for example, that women in the 1950s acted a lot differently than women do now. And, is it a coincidence that people in the 1950s tended to be much more financially well off, and that was like kind of the golden age financially for the average American? Of course, it's not a coincidence, but instead the manosphere, and even more macro than that, I'm going to be a little bit conspiratorial here, but I think that the media, the government, corporations, I honestly think that they benefit from men and women attacking each other, from feminism being pitted against the manosphere, or just anti-feminism, and then just having them constantly attack each other. When in reality, a lot of the problems that women face, a lot of the problems that men face are because of the financial situation that they're put in, where otherwise if they were in a time like the 1950s, where actually finances were like pretty good and okay for the most part, this sort of derision between the sexes wouldn't happen. A lot of men wouldn't feel disenfranchised in the dating marketplace and feel like they have no options and become incels. And there won't be a lot of women who feel like they have to like resort to only going after like these super high value men and becoming gold diggers and going on OnlyFans. So this begs the question then, if somebody is benefiting from men and women fighting against each other, who is it and why? Well, one thing that I've learned from really studying a lot of psychology, history, and philosophy is that people who get to positions of power, a lot of times they're able to do that by riling up their sort of certain populations and getting them really angry about stuff. Anger is an extremely powerful emotion that really moves people to go do things. So like, yes, these politicians, yes, these movements, these ideologies benefits from angering their the people that they preach to and paint a certain enemy. This is actually an effective strategy in marketing as well. I mean, this explains, for example, the success of Fresh and Fit. Now, whether Fresh and Fit actually consciously know they're doing it or not, one of the reasons that they see so much success is because they rile up their fan base and they say, hey man, you're getting screwed over by this current society. And they're not incorrect in saying that. And then they paint modern women as the boogeyman. Unfortunately, where Fresh and Fit screws up and they don't go far enough is like questioning the entire system as a whole. And even if they do question it a little bit, they still play into the game, right? They're just like, oh, well, you know, society's messed up in the sense that, oh, you have to just make a ton of money to like make something of yourself nowadays, where you didn't have to before. It kind of sucks. So I guess the solution is just to make a bunch of money and just keep playing the game. As soon as you buy into that, you end up still being in the matrix. You haven't left the matrix when you do that. I think this is something that really needs to be have attention shined on it within the manosphere space, within even if you're not part of the manosphere, even if you're like a hardcore feminist. Like, I think we can all agree that our Western society, our government, our corporations, whatever you want to call it, have failed us, and they benefit from us clashing against each other. And in reality, like, you thinking that you unplugged from the matrix, that's actually the ultimate blue pill, because unless you've actually lived outside of the US, unless you've actually seen what life is like outside of the US, you're still in the matrix, man. You are. Now, whether that's a good or a bad thing, that's up to you. But now you have an awareness. This is an actual true red pill. This is a bigger red pill than you can ever take from just learning about the truth about female behavior. Because the reality is when people aren't financially constrained, when they feel like they can actually freely express themselves, they actually act differently. Women tend to act more feminine in places like where I'm living right now, right? Men tend to act more masculine because they're not constantly thinking, oh, how am I gonna pay my bills? How am I gonna, like, you know, how are people gonna judge me? If you truly give a shit about unplugging from the matrix and really being red-pilled, this is the true red pill, all right? And there's a practical first step to do this. You don't have to just uproot your entire life and just go travel abroad somewhere, right? Go travel to somewhere in Southeast Asia or South America. You'll understand just financially how much you're getting screwed over. And second, you'll understand that life is actually way better, that these little squabbles that happen in the West, that it's not necessarily happening in the rest of the world. And then at that point, you will understand the truth about female nature, the truth about human nature, and most importantly, the truth about yourself and the things that actually matter to you in your life, things that you can't even focus on if you're just worried about paying your bills all the time. So regardless of what the actual truth about female nature is and dating and the red pill from that standpoint, all of that stuff, we're not actually going to know the truth if all of us are just fighting against each other, because the powers that be benefit from us being at each other's throat. And the true way to actually help humanity and help your loved ones is to actually unplug from the matrix, the real matrix from this standpoint, actually the rat race that you're in the US, actually unplug from that, live life outside of the matrix, and you can come back into the matrix and help people understand and learn like what the truth about the world actually is, right? How to actually be happy, how to actually live a great, fulfilling life. similar to what I'm trying to do right here, right now. As somebody who was part of the Redpill dating space since like 2015, first as just a viewer and then eventually as a content creator, I think it's really important that people in this space and outside of this space look at what the true Redpill actually is, what it truly means to unplug, and actually look a bit more from a macro perspective. So if you like this type of content, I usually don't make content like this. Mostly I just focus on self-improvement and stuff, but I think this is important stuff to talk about, right? Like, you can't actually focus on self-improvement if the government and the powers that be are constantly like pressuring you to do other things that distract you from self-improvement. You know what I mean? Like, one of the great things about being out here is that I don't have those pressures on me, and I can focus and dedicate my life to self-improvement, which I believe, in my opinion, is a way to get self-actualization. Self-actualization is the meaning of life, and it makes you happy and fulfilled. But I think it'd be very disingenuous of me to just be like, yeah, man, just focus on self-improvement. Meanwhile, your government and your society is trying to fuck you over at every turn. So let me know if you like this type of content, and I'll make more of it. If this is the first time you've ever watched this channel, my name's Kevin Ray Wilder. I focus on philosophy, self-improvement, and fitness. And now I guess I talk about a little bit more macro subjects as well, because it's kind of necessary. Because if my viewers are living in a society and an environment that isn't conducive to self-improvement, I need to address that first so that you can actually focus on self-improvement. Thanks so much for watching. Let me know what you think in the comment section below. I know this is probably going to be a little bit of a controversial video, so I'm interested to hear your guys' perspectives. But yeah, so if you haven't subscribed already, please subscribe. Otherwise, I'll see you in the next video. Bye.